Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being on time to today's webinar. My name is Luis Santiago. My pronouns are he and him. And as you can see on the screen, our topic for this afternoon is all about helping you find purpose, choosing a career path that's right for you. So we're at 1:30. This is scheduled to take about 50 minutes or so, maybe 45 minutes. It's very much meant to be informative, hopefully interactive in some way, shape, or form. I invite you all to potentially try to get engaged, try to take notes. There will be a number of hopefully new things that you'll learn from this session. And also, I will just quickly let you all know that everything that's going to be stated today in this webinar, with you participating or maybe registering for this event earlier, you will get a copy of the slides, and you will also get an email from me with other useful pieces of information, useful resources that we're going to discuss within the next hour. So I just want to make sure that everything's working from a technology standpoint on your end. So if anyone is able to at least let me know in the chat that you're able to see the screen that I'm sharing and you can hear my voice. I would hate to go through all this content and then halfway through realize that none of that is working. I hope that it is, because we've been doing these types of webinars for a long, long time. But I just want to make sure that that's the case. So if someone, please, in the chat, let me know that you're once again seeing my screen and hearing my voice. Thank you, Hanan. I see the thumbs up from Zane, Anita. All right, excellent. So 3 is good for me. Hopefully it's working for everybody else. And that being said, we have a decent number of attendees right now. We can probably dive into our content, which once again, it's going to be covering certain ideas, certain pieces of information that you may find beneficial if you are on the fence of maybe what potential career path you want to pursue. Maybe you have a couple of occupations that you're considering, but you're still not extremely comfortable or fairly certain with what those things are. So once again, a lot of this information that I'll be sharing with you all today is going to be helping you learn more probably about the world of work, and hopefully also learn about how you yourself fits into the world of work. So let's get into it. Oh, and that being said, it's probably easier for me to turn off my camera. That way you can focus on the content on the screen. So I'll be doing that. I'll also quickly state that you'll see, as this being a webinar, you do not have your microphones on, you don't have your webcams on, so I won't be able to see you all. But if you do have questions, I invite you to put them into the chat. You can also use the Q&A feature that you can find in Zoom. And if there is something that you want to really unmute and ask a question, you can use the raise hand feature. I will see that. I will allow you to unmute and then ask your questions that way. So let's dive in by first making sure that we acknowledge the Coast Salish peoples of this land, the land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. We always at the Korean Internship Center try to start our presentations with the land acknowledgement, because we do want to respect the history of the people that did occupy this land, still occupy the local area, and are a part of our history. So the map that you see there is actually something that we were able to pull from the Burke Museum. If you've never been, it's an excellent place. They have great exhibits to learn more about the history of the University of Washington and the land that it stands on. Now, finding purpose, finding a career path that's right for you. I want to start off with a question. And I'd like you all to think back when you were very young, maybe 5 years old, and what did you consider to be your quote unquote dream job? What was it that you wanted to be when you grew up? So here's one of the first engagement points of this webinar. Feel free to put into the chat, because I'd love to see what some of your thoughts might be. And I'll be honest, if this was me putting in my thoughts of what I wanted to be when I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a superhero. I wanted to be Superman. I wanted to see what that was going to be like. That was obviously a big thing that I was a fan of, and I'd be putting Superman on the list. So I see some folks starting to put things down. Starbucks barista, which you're doing that right now. A vet, I guess veterinarian, also superhero, excellent at that. Video game designer, a vet as well, a doctor, excellent. Other folks, there's about 16 of us here, so maybe other folks are taking your answers, but definitely feel free, consider, what else did you want to be when you grew up, when you were 5 years old? If you have that in mind, I'm now curious, and I'm gonna launch a poll based on the question that you see now on the poll. Are you still in pursuit of that career path of what you thought you wanted to be when you were 5? Are you still in that process of pursuit? So give us a couple of seconds here so that everyone has a chance to submit their response. And then I'll share the poll results once we have either everybody or a high number of folks that already answered. So once again, if you had a dream job when you were 5 years old, I'm curious to see whether or not you're still in pursuit of that particular path. All right, closing the poll in 3, 2, 1, and you should be seeing the results at this point. Every one of you that are in attendance are no longer in pursuit of that. So now I'm extremely interested to hear what happened. What was it that made it where you're no longer in pursuit of that particular career path? What was it that occurred? Was there any particular thing that happened that made you deviate from your original idea when you were 5 years old? So once again, I invite you to put what occurred into the chat. If you are so inclined, you are also able to raise your hand if you want to unmute and then provide your response that way. I'll share while folks are probably typing certain things. I know for me, I mentioned that I wanted to be Superman. And then I learned after climbing on top of the kitchen table and trying to fly across the living room that I was unable to do so. I landed very quickly onto my face because I couldn't fly. And that was a quick realization, you know what? Yeah, maybe Superman is not in the cards for me. So let me see. I'm seeing a couple of, I guess, responses in the chat there. Realize that it didn't really match your interest, certain cultural standards, which also is something to consider as well. I found something that I was more passionate about, maybe another shout out in terms of what happens with potential interest. I guess the too funny comment has to do with me landing on my face. Let's see what else there. I realized the amount of education it required. Yeah, maybe a little bit too much. You don't want to sign up for that. I wonder if that's pursuing a doctor to become an MD potentially. And let's see here. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Zane, for that thought. Parents and other people didn't approve. Yeah, so there could be a number of different things, whether it's cultural, how your society, how culture might see certain career paths, how your family, how others might influence your thoughts there. Maybe you just had other experiences where you come to realize that, you know what, my interests change, my ideas of myself have evolved along the way. And that's normal. Basically what's going to happen is even throughout life, you'll have an idea in terms of a potential job or a career path or even a major that you want to pursue. And then the more you start learning about your options, and the more you start learning about yourself as well, some of those ideas may change. And that's okay, because what's ending up happening is that you're gathering more information. And that's the name of the game when we're trying to help students as career coaches in our office. When we're trying to help them decide on a potential career path to pursue, it's checking in to see, okay, what's the information that you currently have? And how can we help you get more info, whether that's information about yourself or information about your options, so that way you can try to make an informed choice that will feel comfortable with you in terms of what it is that you're pursuing. So one thing that I did notice that you all were putting into the chat, and once again, thank you for participating with that, was the realization of a change in interests. And I do want to emphasize how interest can play a very important part in trying to decide what potential career path to pursue. And I'm going to do that by hopefully playing this video that you all will be able to hear. So let's go ahead and give this a try. And of course, let me know in the chat if it's not working.
It used to be okay to settle for work that didn't excite you. But if you're going to increasingly compete with others for work, then you're going to need to do work that motivates you. So, rule number 1 of the new rules of work is do the work that you love. One of the most fundamental understandings of ourselves is that we each have a completely unique mix of skills, knowledges, traits, experiences, and interests. Nobody else on the planet has exactly the same characteristics as you. And that unique mix means that there's a range of different kinds of work that you could be doing. With more than 40 years of experience at helping job hunters and career changers, Dick Bowles, author of What Color's Your Parachute? The Enduring Career Manual, has found that the key to being motivated at work is in finding or in creating a match between your unique characteristics and the work that you do. Over and over again, we've seen that the better that match is between what's true about you and your work, the better your satisfaction and motivation. So why is motivation more important in a world of constant change? There are several important reasons. First, workers will increasingly stand out because they're motivated. Think of motivation as a spectrum. On one end, we're completely disinterested in the work that we do. We show up, we do it, but we have zero motivation. But on the other end, we jump out of bed in the morning. We're energized by the opportunity to do the work that we love. Now, in a more static world with 9-to-5 jobs and repetitive work, it was possible to do work that didn't motivate you very much. But you're going to increasingly find that being highly motivated by the work that you do will not only make you stand out, it will give you the drive to continually excel at what you do. Look, it's absolutely your choice if you don't want to be motivated at work, but you're going to find it will increasingly put you at a disadvantage. Second, workers who are doing the work that they love are far more likely to be more creative, more innovative, and more proactive in doing their work. That increases your ability to perform your work and to repeatedly find new ways to solve problems. Now, using your fingers as circles, if your left-hand circle is all of the skills, knowledges, and work environment characteristics that make you happy in your work, and your right-hand circle is your current job, how much of an overlap do those two circles have? And how much do you want them to have? The greater the overlap, the more agile you'll be in continually doing the work you're motivated to do. And that will be one of your greatest assets in a constantly changing world of work.
So hopefully what you were able to pick up from that video was this idea of trying to have a better sense of your unique characteristics, the information about yourself, and trying to match that up with the potential career path that you want to pursue. Now, quickly before I move further, I did see that there was a question in the Q&A box. I will just remind everyone here that what you're seeing right now with the slides and this presentation, this is being recorded. So you will get a copy of the slides. We'll also make sure that you get a link to this recording once it's up on our YouTube page. So that way you will have ways to reconnect with this information after today's presentation. So back to the slide. What I was saying and what the video alluded to was, once again, this idea of trying to have these overlapping circles with the option of career path, the job that you want to do, and what you know well about yourself. So a lot of students come into our office at the Career and Internship Center and want to learn more about various career paths with the information that you see in the left-hand box. So knowing what the duties and tasks will be for a particular role, what's the work environment, how much education and training I would need. I think that amongst one of the biggest things students want to know what the salary and job outlook is going to be. And of course, as career coaches, we can point you to where you can find that information, so that way you can become informed within these various industries and career paths. But also, we want to make sure that students are connecting what they know about themselves to these particular options. So what are the things that you like to do? What are your interests? What are the things that you know that you do good in, your skills, or the skills that you're wanting to perfect or wanting to build? You know, what skills are you currently trying to learn on your end? Also, a big one, what's important for you in a job? Do you want to have a job that provides a good work-life balance? Would you want an occupation that gives you a chance to be able to work from home, be able to telework, hybrid, work from home, sometimes going to the office? What are the things that are important for you in a job? So the more you can have a better sense of the things on the right-hand side of the box or the right-hand side of the screen, then you can use that information and connect it to the career options that you're going to start to learn. So that's the hope of today's presentation, to get you to understand how you can learn more about yourself and how to use that information to connect to possible career options. So you see the box on the right-hand side talked about three things: interest, skills, and values. For this presentation, we want to focus specifically on interests. So as you can see, a basic definition of what interests are: things that you maybe like to learn about, activities like the activities that you like to do on your spare time, maybe certain tasks that you enjoy performing. So maybe right now, if you want to include into the chat, I love your participation so far. Maybe feel free to include a couple of things that you would consider your interests, your hobbies, whether it's classes you like to learn or attend, activities you do in your spare time, tasks you enjoy performing. I wouldn't be surprised that even looking at the image on the right, you might even notice a couple of interests that are popping up here. So for the purpose of engagement and to get your brain flowing a little bit for this topic, I'm curious to see what are some interests that you would list out for yourself. And please feel free to add that into the chat. It's funny, even just looking at the images, I got 4 right there for me: gaming, hiking, watching movies, and playing soccer. Or football is really the way I like to call it. So I see drawing, learning about different topics, a variety of different classes that are popping up here: math and physics, psychology, arts, data science, machine learning. Anything outside, hopefully the rain isn't going to be too much of a deterrent for being outside. Oh, yes, another gamer in the room. Excellent. So This is great. This is one of the reasons why we like to talk about interests first, because we feel that students are self-aware at this stage in their life of what they would consider as their interest. So this is a good starting point. A reason why we want to focus on interest is because there's also a very interesting way that you can use interest for career exploration. And this was introduced by an individual by the name of Dr. John Holland. So Dr. Holland was a vocational psychologist that came up with a personality and environment theory that basically was finding ways where if an individual had a better sense of what their personality was, then they would have a clearer idea of what type of environment they would thrive in. That was kind of the tenets of John Holland's work. And it started with this idea of how he felt, how personality was formed. So there's a number of different stages that come into play here in terms of what this might look like. This is, once again, how John Holland perceived it. And as you're looking at what's on the screen, maybe you can think about yourself as you were growing up. What did this look like for you as your personality was forming? So you see the first activity there, the first bullet point, where at an early age, your caregivers introduced you to particular activities. I know for me, I'll use myself as an example, sports was a big part of my upbringing. Always loved playing the outdoors and being active in some way, shape, or form. Certain sports or certain activities was a joy for me. Other activities, not so much. I know my mom put me in to try to take violin classes when I was in 4th grade. That lasted maybe 2 months. I did not enjoy it. I did not stick with it. And it did not become an interest because it wasn't being positively reinforced. But one thing that did get big for me was basketball. I loved playing basketball. It definitely became a huge hobby of mine, especially once I got into high school. And I got so interested in it that I continuously found ways to engage in that activity. I would walk to school with a basketball in my hand and constantly dribble all over the place. I would watch as many games as I possibly could. I would try to emulate certain basketball players that I was fans of and do that on the basketball court. I was almost doing everything outside of my whenever I had free time, was always doing something basketball related. And sure enough, because of the continuous engagement in that interest, in that activity, my skills became higher. I got better at certain aspects of the game that allowed me to thrive even more with that interest area. Now, according to John Holland, interests lead to skills, and then your engagement in all these types of activities and ways that you're involved with these things, you are subconsciously creating for yourself what he called your vocational personality. That these activities and experiences helped individuals to establish that. And once again, it's now trying to match that up with potential environments. So with John Holland's work, he was able to start recognizing that 6 distinct personality types were out there from what he was witnessing from a lot of the research that he was doing, talking to a number of different individuals. He was able to come up with 6 distinct personality types. And not only can people be categorized by these distinct personality types, but so can environments, such as work settings. So, according to Dr. Holland, people search for environments where they can express their unique characteristics, where they are able to freely express their interests, their skills, other things that they've come to learn about themselves and identify with. And they want to be in an environment that allows them to thrive and to be themselves. So this next slide shows the 6 different categories that John Holland identified in his work, in his research. The 6 different types that are become known nowadays as the RIASEC types. And that's the first letter of each of the 6 categories, RIASEC or RIASEC, RIASEC. And it's just going clockwise from the top: realistic, investigative artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. So what I would invite each of you to do, maybe for the next minute or so, is to read over each of the 6 categories that you see on the screen. And as you see that on the question there, try to pick 2 or 3 categories that you feel best describe you. You don't necessarily have to add it in the chat, but I invite you to do so if you would like to. I would definitely encourage you to write it down, keep it somewhere that you can follow along as we continue through this presentation. So if you're able to, once again, pick 2 or 3 categories that really stand out to you. And yeah, your top 2 would be considered like your primary interest areas or your interest categories. And if you do have a clear third, that can be seen as your second area. Excellent to see that one of you, Zane, was already able to quickly read over them. And I love how you even selected certain categories there, like the secondary names for them. So for example, realistic can be known as the doers. Artistic folks can also be seen as creators, and so on and so forth. So try to see, once again, if you can pick your 2, maybe 2 or 3 categories that stand out for you, and write them down either for yourself, or once again, if you feel so inclined to share it with the rest of us, you are able to put that into the chat. As you're probably still reading through and figuring out which categories best fit you, I can probably share mine. So as you maybe, I don't know if you're already imagining this, but if you were to know more about what it is that I do in my role as a career coach, a lot of what I do is, once again, helping students try to find internships, find jobs, or help them try to find what career path might be a good fit for them. So sure enough, a lot of what I'm doing is helping people, teaching them, training them, developing them. A lot of what's listed there for the social category, also known as helpers. So my top area is social. And then even after that, I'd say my second one is enterprising. My third one is artistic. So my top 3 areas really fit the bottom of this image, the bottom of the hexagon: social, enterprising, and artistic. So once again, for you, if you're able to select your top 2 or 3, notice that I called them out with the title that was on the outside, not necessarily the inside label. The inside label is good to help you understand it a little bit more, But yeah, social, enterprising, and artistic would be my top 3. At this point in time, we're going to go ahead and keep moving forward. Hopefully you all were able to identify which ones were at least your top 2 areas. If not, you have 3, then excellent. If you weren't able to, that's okay. Like I said, you will get these slides and a link to the recording as well, so that way maybe you can do this activity on your own when you have the time to do so. So hopefully you wrote down what your areas were. Now I want us to shift our focus and to look at our career options, the world of work. And goodness gracious, when you think about the world of work, there are a lot of careers that exist. So what's helpful is to try to put all those different types of occupations within specific buckets. Sometimes it's easier to manage a smaller number of buckets as opposed to looking at a list of the thousands of jobs. So thankfully, the U.S. Department of Labor has provided different career groups or industries or career fields. There's 16 ones that are typically represented with the number of occupations that exist out there. Those 16 are listed on the screen. Now, going back to what Dr. Holland theorized, environments such as jobs or career fields can also be categorized within these 6 distinct types that he came up with. So sure enough, if I went through each of those 6 types, I can see which career fields tend to match up with that. So for example, the screen right now is showing realistic and investigative. So realistic, these were the doers. These were individuals that enjoyed working with tools and objects, maybe enjoyed working with their hands and being outdoors, very practical in terms of how they go about doing certain things, but they were very hands-on with what they viewed as their interest and their personality type. Sure enough, the career fields that fit realistic are very hands-on, very tool-oriented. Agriculture, transportation, art, media, architecture, all these, you can see how realistic could fit into that area. Investigative, these were the thinkers. These were the folks that wanted to know why things are the way they are, approach everything with maybe that scientific method, want to hypothesize something and test out that hypothesis and then retest it to make sure that it matched up with the various times that they were doing it. Investigative maybe likes to work on things on their own, as opposed to working within big groups of different people. They're very much curious about the natural world. Sure enough, everything that falls under investigative, you can see a lot of these STEM careers falling in there: health science, science, engineering, mathematics, IT, computer science, all those very STEM related. We move on to the other 2 categories here, artistic and social. These were the creators, artistic. These are the folks that like to use their imagination, like to think outside the box. Of course, arts, media, communication makes perfect sense. So does architecture. And notice that some of these career fields, like architecture, can be seen in various areas. So architecture not only was a realistic career field, but also there's some artistic components to that as well. Social was the helpers, the folks that like to get involved in helping other individuals solve whatever concerns that they may potentially have. They like to teach, they like to train, very education-based and human services, but those types of helping fields can be in a number of areas as well. Government, nonprofit, public administration, health as well is a big one. And then the final 2 areas, enterprising, these were known as the persuaders. These are individuals that like to maybe take on lead roles. Maybe they like to persuade and engage with other individuals, and maybe public speaking comes natural to these individuals. Business, finance, government, a lot of quote unquote businessy types of jobs tend to fit in well within enterprising, and also fit in well within the conventional area. And these were the organizers. These were the individuals that maybe liked numbers and words, and they need to put things in order. They find joy with having lists and checking things off the list and making sure everything's in its proper place. So this idea now boils down to, if you know, or if you've identified which of these 6 Holland categories, back to the hexagon, if you feel comfortable with which ones are the ones that you feel strongly connected to, you may potentially start exploring certain career paths based on how they fit with Holland's typology. And these are things that we're able to look at as well as career coaches, and also something that you could potentially do on your own with a resource that we have known as Pathway U. So this is going to be something that I definitely want to walk you all through in terms of what it is. And it's basically an online tool that is free for University of Washington students, that allows you to learn more about your unique characteristics, and then try to connect those characteristics to potential career paths. So a great way to help you connect and learn about how you fit into the world of work. So how this works, I will go ahead and actually put the link to this resource into the chat. Once again, you'll get a link to this in the email that I'll send out at the end of today's presentation. But Pathway U, once you're in there and you're logged in with the University of Washington credentials, the very first step that it recommends for you to do is to do some self-discovery, to learn more about yourself by taking some career assessments. Now, there's 4 assessments that you see when you're logged in: interests, values, personality, and workplace preferences. But all you really have to focus on to begin with are these 2 assessments, interest and values. You do not need to take all 4. Now, if I looked at interests, maybe the little graphic there looks familiar, because sure enough, these 6 Holland categories that we just discussed are described here. So it's a very, very easy assessment that you're able to take. I can even hit the retake button so you can see what it looks like. And all it's going to be is going to be questions or lists of activities that people do at their jobs. So all you have to do is, when you're presented these list of activities, is to think about whether or not you would like or dislike that activity. And no, don't think about how much money you would make. Don't think about whether or not you have the right amount of education or training right now. Just with your own, just right now, how you feel. How much would you like to build kitchen cabinets? Strongly dislike to strongly like. How much would you like to develop a new medicine, write books or plays, help people with their personal and emotional problems? You complete the assessment, and then you're able to get a ranking of your 6 different Holland categories. I mentioned earlier that social was one of my big ones. Oh, that's right, conventional was high for me, not enterprising. But social, sure enough, was my top one. You're also asked to complete the values assessment, and once you've completed the 2, this button here in purple that says Explore Career Matches is now available to you. So what does that look like? Now, by clicking that button, the 16 career fields that we showed earlier in the presentation they are now organized by how your assessment results came out. So, for example, since social was a top area for me, and that involves a lot of helping others, teaching others, training others, career fields that show up highly with the social category are now on the top of my list. Education, didn't mean to click on that, but education, human services, health sciences. I know, for example, my lowest category was investigative, which is very much STEM related. And sure enough, if I go all the way down to the bottom of my list, STEM does not necessarily fit well with me, because now I can even see on the right-hand side there, the number of careers that I didn't have a very strong match. I pretty much had a weak match to them. So this is an excellent tool. You've basically created your own personalized list of career matches. And I can maybe search by subject first. Let me then click on View Careers and see all the different occupations that are represented within the education area. And I can probably even filter a little bit more. Maybe I know that I just want to get a bachelor's degree. I want to stop right there. I can now look at this list and see how many were very strong matches. I can even filter on the left-hand side by very strong only or strong, or I can pick as many as I want. Maybe there's a specific industry that I want to work into, and now that opens up that menu of options here as well. A number of different ways to help you filter. And if you want to learn more about what the occupation is, you can actually click on it. And what we mentioned earlier, one of the first slides about information about occupations, the salary, the tasks, the duties that you'll do, all of that is shown now on this screen. It gives you the chance to get more information about the field, so that way you can start learning more about what this would entail, how much money you would make on an annual basis, and so on and so forth. What I love about this site is the programs button, because we've matched up which University of Washington undergraduate degrees would be good for you to consider for this particular career path. So not only is this resource helpful to see what potential career options might be good for you, it can also recommend what possible majors would be good for you as well. So lots of fun things that you can do with this resource, but you do have to go in, create the account, activate it with the assessments, and then take some time to learn more about how these types of occupations may fit well with you. This is just meant to be a tool for exploration. It does not need to be seen as like an absolute. Just because education is the top of my list does not mean that I only can do well in education. Maybe there's some other career fields that might pop up that could also be good for me as well. So don't take it where you have to go with the very top thing on your list. Use a resource like this as a catalyst for exploration. Maybe it's going to reaffirm some of the options that you're already considering. Maybe it's going to introduce you to things that you weren't even aware of. And then you can click on it and learn more, and hopefully try to make an informed choice based on some of these different types of occupations. Another quick thing that I will also point out with this tool, there is a few fun activities that can help you understand how to utilize the system a little bit more. So I click on the tools button, and then there's these worksheets that could be beneficial if you wanted to, for example, understand how to understanding your assessment results, or how to use the career match features. So these are easable, fillable PDFs that if you wanted a little bit more guidance in terms of how to engage with this tool, you have access to that using these worksheets. So with that being said, let me see here. Yes. The other thing that I also wanted to make sure that you were aware of was how to connect with our office, because maybe one of the things that you can do on your own is connect with PathwayU. But if you would like further assistance with understanding your assessment results, or maybe getting a better sense of where you might fit into some of these potential occupations, you're more than happy, or we're more than happy to try to help you either in an appointment or a drop-in session. So we do have multiple ways that you can connect with us by drop-in. This is our website, careers.uw.edu. And we do offer drop-ins Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday this quarter from 11:30 to 1:30. Or if you wanted to come in with an appointment, on our home screen, there is the appointments button here, and it'll walk you through how to schedule an appointment within the Handshake system. So to schedule an appointment, you log into Handshake. All these tools, all these websites, I will share with you via email at the end of today's presentation. I'll also send a copy of this recording once it's on our YouTube page. So my hope is that some of the things that we discussed and the tools that we shared today can help you get started in terms of connecting with possible career paths, or maybe has given you a better idea in terms of some of the stuff that you were already considering. So with that, let me stop sharing my screen. We're at the end of what I wanted to share with our slideshow today. If you did have questions, you're more than welcome to, once again, either put them into the chat or put them into the Q&A box. But if you don't have questions, you're more than welcome to head on out to the next thing that you need to do. And like I said, I'll send an email later today with all the resources that I shared. So hopefully you found this helpful. And once again, I'll stick around just in case there's any questions.